Hey everybody, it's Chef Andrew. Welcome back to Thursday Dinners Live. I am so glad to see you again. I had to take a break last week. I had some family stuff going on. But we're back again. Back again. And we're doing one of my favorite things this week. We are deep diving into cruciferous vegetables, which, nutritionally speaking, absolutely one of the best things you can eat. Now, cruciferous vegetables are that category of sulfur containing vegetables, which means broccoli, cauliflower, asparagus, cabbages, Brussels sprouts, other things like that. And so we're going on a deep dive on how to get more of that in your diet. So we're going to do 4 different preparations today, along with a couple of vinaigrettes. We're going to make a sauce. We're going to make a flavored salt. It's going to be really awesome and very easy. So the reason to do this is to show you how easy it is to, sorry, I had to change my screen, to show you how easy it is to be able to incorporate these things into your diet. All right. So with that said, let me get my phone set up and then we'll get started. Okay. I will be getting another phone mount pretty soon. But actually, I did get a new phone, so I hope that the picture is way better than it has been. So let's first, let me lower you down here so you can see my board. There we go. Great. Okay, so before we do that, let me tell you what we're making. So the first item we're going to jump into is an asparagus dish. It can be a side, or it can be, entree size, depending on how many asparagus you want to put on the plate. So we're doing seared asparagus with lemon and parsley salt. We're going to prep the asparagus and then make the salt. And then the second item we're making is a broccoli crunch, which is a raw preparation. It's not cooked at all. You're going to love that one. It's one of my favorite broccoli dishes. Can be served cold or room temperature. It works either way. It is a real easy way to eat a bunch of broccoli. The next one is going to be a cabbage and kale slaw, and that's going to have a tart orange dressing with it and some chili lime almonds that go with that. That's going to be really nice and fresh. And then lastly, we're doing a seared Brussels sprout and zucchini dish with apricot balsamic dressing and toasted pistachios. Cool. So with that said, let's get into the veggies. All right, here we go. Lots to do today, so we're going to get started now. Asparagus. You've all seen this, right? And I'm going to do a preparation that is a fine dining preparation. I think it makes it so much nicer to eat. You don't have to do this part if you don't want to, but I'm going to just to show you what it looks like. Incidentally, when you're choosing asparagus, so asparagus really is a flower, and this is the flower portion of it. You can see all the little petals. When it's fresh, these petals are closed. They're really close to the stem, and the flower head should be tight. This one doesn't look so great, the top of this one, so I will not use that. Just gonna snap it off and put it aside. But like on this one, you can see this flower head is very tight. It's very firm. So these are fresh. Sometimes they mix them up. Sometimes they get damaged in packaging or shipping or whatever. But here's what we're gonna do. Typically, when you get asparagus, you can see this part of it was underground. How do we know that? Because it's white. This part never saw sunshine, so it couldn't make any chlorophyll. It could never produce green. So this is where the asparagus was under the whatever the growing material was. This part is typically more woody than the rest of the asparagus, but we don't have to cut it all off. We can utilize a lot of it. I can tell you, and you can hear it as I'm cutting through, that was really difficult to cut through because this fiber is so thick and it's just not nice to eat. So that's why we're going to trim that. And typically, when you get jumbo asparagus like this, that's about all you need to take off if you're going to do this preparation. And you're going to need a vegetable peeler. And what we want to do is hold our asparagus by the flower end and press down so that we peel just under all that fibrous skin. Okay. Now, this asparagus is kind of flat. It makes it a lot more challenging to do this. So now I'm going to just hold it and I'm going to do the sides just in little sections. Okay. Just like that. I'm trying to keep the main shape of the asparagus. I don't want to peel into the flesh if I can help it. This one will be much easier to demonstrate because it's round. We want to keep it nice and round. So we're going to start up here at the flower end and peel all the way down. You can really feel it when you start getting into this, the lighter colored part. Now all I want to do is try to match up these lines that I'm creating when I'm peeling, like this. I'm just matching up these lines as I'm going, again, so that I don't waste a bunch of asparagus flesh. Now, towards the end here, I could feel my peeler like that, just catching on all this extra fiber. So I don't want to eat that. I'm going to peel it off. And if you find that this is really fibrous and too crunchy, just cut it off and be done with it. But that's nice. You see how it's nice and round, and we just took off the skin, so all the fiber is gone. Now with the one we trimmed, I'll just quickly do this one. If you have teenage children, this is a great job for them to do. Put them to work as your sous chefs. So see how we keep that nice and round? All right, we'll get rid of our asparagus peel. I'll set this right here. Okay. Now we're going to make a salt. We're going to make a lemon and parsley salt. And we're going to use our peeler again because all we need of this lemon is just the zest part. So I want to not really press down too hard because you can see as this is coming off, the white pith is still there and this is all the zest. So if I'm pressing down, I'm going to be getting some of this white pith and I don't want that. I only need about 4 to 5 strips of lemon zest like this, and you can really smell that when it's coming off here. Yeah, that's nice. Okay. I'm going to be using my spice grinder to make this salt. And the difference between this one and the ones we've made before is that this salt is going to be at least half lemon and parsley. So we want it to be a much higher percentage of, we'll call it the vegetable matter than the salt, because we want to be able to use this substantial amount of it for seasoning and not get too salty. So we want that ratio to be approximately 50%. Now, all I'm going to do is just kind of help my grinder along by cutting these into little pieces initially, and I'm going to put all that inside my grinder cup. And then we need to chop our parsley. Remember, when we do fresh herbs, you want to make sure that these twist ties are pulled down so that you don't cut through them. You don't want to damage your knife blade, and you definitely don't want to eat that. So we're going to take our parsley and just give it a little roll. Now, I don't have to shave this super fine because it is going in the grinder, and we're going to do about that much. Because when this grinds down, it won't have this much volume at all. So we have our parsley and our salt in the grinder right now. Sorry, parsley and lemon, not salt yet. Salt is coming right now. I have the sea salt, and I'm going to add maybe a couple of tablespoons, and that's about it. Again, I want this to be a very herb heavy salt. Okay, so let me step away and grind this, and I'll be right back. Wow, look how it blitzed it up like that. And look at that color. And you can see it's very sandy like a salt, but we can we can add a little more to our dishes because half of this is parsley and lemon. So just look at that. It's very wet, and it should be. That's part of its appeal. It's just super fresh. So we're going to set that aside for now. Now I'm going to grab our asparagus. I'm going to take you over to the stove so you can see this. I have a pan on, just right here. Okay, I'm adding just a little bit of olive oil to the pan. My pan is heating. I'm just going to use this to kind of move it around. Now the technique here is going to be, I'm going to sear this one side, and then I'm going to use my tongs to flip them over and just sear the other side. And that's going to be it. One thing to realize when you peel asparagus like this, they cook very fast as well. So this is not going to take any time. So I'm going to have my tongs on standby over here while this is coming to temperature. We're going to start on our broccoli crunch because that needs a little bit of time to marinate. It just gets better over time. It's even more delicious the next day, actually. So, okay, let's go over ingredients for the broccoli crunch. Ready? Okay, we have some. First, the dressing. It's super easy. So we have this avocado oil mayo, and we have apple cider vinegar. It's equal parts of that. We're gonna make that in a minute. We have crispy bacon that will be chopped. We have a red onion. We of course have our broccoli. And I get, sorry that got stuck for a second. I get the ones with the big stems because I like to use also the stem. And I'll teach you how to do that. We have everything bagel seasoning. We have some raisins, golden raisins here. And we have some pecans. Okay. Check this out. We are now sizzling away with this asparagus. In about 30 seconds ish, I'm going to flip these over. They're going to be done very quickly. Okay. And in the meantime, let's talk about broccoli and a red onion. Let me get our bowl ready for this. Okay. A little organization goes a long way. Okay. Back over here. We should have a little color on them. Let's see. Yes, we do. We are getting a little bit of a sear, and that browning just means flavor. So those are all flipped. They're going to continue to cook like that. And we're going to come back over here to the broccoli. What to do with the broccoli. So when you have a big head of broccoli like this, I like to take, I'll give you two ways to do it. I'll do this one side like this. So I would cut the florets off like this. And notice I want to cut them off right where they grow out. And I want these leaves because broccoli leaves are delicious. We want to use all those in our broccoli crunch. Okay, so what I would do is I would take these and I would cut them into bite-sized pieces. I would start by cutting them in half, maybe cutting them into quarters like that. So we have kind of easy to eat pieces. If they're too big, and we do this, we quarter it, just cut them in half. Okay. If this is too big, you want to trim it down again, no problem. Just make them nice bite-sized pieces is all we need to do. So that looks good. And I'm just adding these to my bowl. Back over here. Because these are now pretty much done. If you see the really dark green color, the green that's still left on here, um, these are pretty much done. Maybe another 20 seconds or so is all we need. But you see how we have this nice sear, we have a little color. Yeah, those are good, especially these smaller pieces. They're going to be totally ready now. So that one go just a second. Maybe a few more seconds on these larger ones, but these little babies, these are ready. So that one's ready. This one's ready. And you don't want to cook them too much because without the protection of the fibers that we took off, let's say we left these on here another minute, they could start to get actually mushy, and we don't want that at all. We still want them to have a little bit of texture. So you can see how they bend when I pick them up. That's also a good indicator that they're done. So I'm just gonna leave those for right now. We're gonna finish those later. And now we're back to our broccoli. Okay, so finishing up just the way we did it before, and I have these broccoli leaves. I'm just gonna toss those in there. Okay, finishing up, we're gonna quarter these pieces of broccoli like so. And if they're really long, cut them twice. And if this is too big, just, I call this bending it to your will. Just cut them the way that they need to be cut to get them to be the size that you need. And all of this we can also add so it all goes together. Okay, so that was the first way to cut broccoli. Now, there's another way that's faster. It doesn't look quite as nice, but it's a lot less frills. So what you can do this way is hold the head up like this, and you can just start cutting the florets off as you rotate it. And again, I'm trying to only cut small pieces off so that they can be generally bite-sized pieces. Okay. And if you get bigger ones, like we'll come back to that, but you get the idea. So kind of once I can be straight up and down, then we come back through and we start chopping these down this way. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So now we come through and just look at them. And if any of them need to be trimmed and cut, you just run your knife through it. If you want to just chop it a little more like this, that's also fine. So you see that way is much quicker. Also, if you see any bad spots like this, nobody wants to eat that. So take that out. All right, with these stems, these are tender. There's stems at the top, so I'm incorporating them. I just want to make sure I cut them up small so that they mix in nicely. Okay? So that's the second way. You do whichever way you think works for you the best. So I'm just going to take this broccoli into the bowl. Use my knife to get all this wonderful broccoli pieces. So that's what we're looking like so far. Okay. Now, stem. So we still have all of this. You're paying by the pound for this broccoli, so you don't want to just take this and chuck it in the trash. That's silly. Plus, this is the best part of the broccoli, believe it or not. So what I want to do is square off the bottom so that I can stand it up like that. Okay. Then I need to just give this top part a little trim so that I can see it, and you'll see why in a second. Now, there's nothing wrong with this stuff, right? We are trying to fully utilize the vegetables that we buy because, again, we pay by the pound, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with these. So we're going to also incorporate those. All right. Now, on this stem, you see this little eye right here. So you can tell, and on here too, you can see we have all this. It's a very big centerpiece. You can also see how tough this is. Right? This is hard for me to peel off. And you can see all the heavy fibers in there. This is actually really woody and tough. So there's no way we'd be able to eat that. It just would not be nice at all. So you can use your knife to peel this off this way. That's one way to do it. Or you can, sometimes it helps if it's really tall. Like this is a tall one. I'm going to cut this in half just to make it easier for me to deal with. Okay. Now, if you see me do a citrus fruit, I'll show you this way so you can actually see it. What I'm doing is trying to follow the contours of this broccoli stem. And so I'm trying to only go behind the line I just cut so that I don't cut into the flesh too much. The stuff that's usable and fresh and delicious. So you can see how I'm just trying to keep it right underneath the skin so I can take all that off. Right? And now what I have is a perfectly clean, fresh, crispy broccoli stem. Now all this is the fiber. I'm going to take that away. And the top part, remember that? Now we can do just the same thing here. Just the same. Now I always look at these to see right there some extra fiber. So I just use my peeler to just take that off. Because again, we want the nicest eating experience possible. Now I have two totally usable, nice pieces of broccoli stem. And that, for a lot of people, that would have just gone in the trash. Now we have something that's very usable and delicious. So we're just going to cut this into little rounds. And that will also go in our broccoli crunch. Okay. Now let's talk red onion because this is the next ingredient in our broccoli crunch. We have the root end and we have the flower end. We want to do what I call top and tail, which just means trim right under the root. I don't want to take off a bunch of onion. Same here. I don't want to waste a bunch because we don't need to take off a whole bunch, just enough so that it can be workable for us. Okay, I'm peeling the outside. Some of this outer skin is tough and fibrous. It's that dry oniony paper. Nobody wants to eat that. And I'm going to show you because we need very, very small diced onion. And I'm going to show you a trick to do that as soon as I get all this peeled. Okay. This. Now this right here, you can tell is also dry. This is also dry spot. I don't like that. So I'm just going to go down one more layer. And if you want to help yourself out that way, you can do that. Now, normally I would save these scraps for making chicken stock or something like that. I don't have room right now, so I will just add that to the compost. Okay, so we have our onion. Normally what I would do is cut it in half and use the half onion to dice up really small. But today, instead of doing that, since I don't need a whole lot and I also need it to be very small, what I'm going to do is just cut off a side, and I'm going to cut very thin strips into this. Notice I didn't cut it all the way through, okay? So that when I come back through, I have this very, very small dice of onion, like that. So that nobody gets a big, bite of onion at once. Just they'll be small. So I'll take this. That'll be the onion for the broccoli slaw. That's what that looks like so far. Next, we're bringing in the bacon. You don't have to use bacon, but I happen to really like bacon, so I'm going to use, what, 5 pieces? Maybe 6. Like I said, we like bacon. I roasted this in the oven, so there's not a lot of real fat left in it. These were real meaty pieces to begin with. So what I want to do is just cut across, make these into little strips. There you go. Add that to my broccoli. Okay, and the next thing we talked about, I have these gold raisins. Those just go in. We have pecans. Depending on how much you like pecans, you can add, a little or a lot. This recipe only calls for 2 tablespoons, which is about that much. And it says chop. I'm just going to rough chop these. These add a lot of texture, so I don't want to chop them too much. I want to keep some of that texture going. So pecan going in. That's what it looks like so far. Looking like something special. All right. Then we have our everything bagel seasoning. Okay. And that's 2 teaspoons, which if we're doing it by the lid is about almost a full lid, like that. And again, if you like this, you can add a little more if you want to. That's fine. Just remember there is salt in this bagel seasoning, so you don't want to make it too salty. Then we have black pepper. That may seem like a lot, but I really like black pepper, so I'm gonna put a little extra in there. All right. Okay, that's all of our ingredients for the broccoli crunch. But we have to make the dressing yet. So we have our little bowl. We have our mayo. Remember I said this is equal parts. So we're gonna take about 2 spoons. I'm trying to judge how much I need for all that. Maybe just a little bit more. There we go. Now, your recipe calls for adding salt to the broccoli, but what I find is a little bit better is to just lightly season this dressing. That way it just mixes in well and easy. Now we're doing equal parts mayo and apple cider vinegar, which is this guy. So I add a little and I wait till it kind of emulsifies like this. Add a little more. And this should end up being a nice thick coating consistency. Just about like that. Okay, so now give that a little taste. Oh yeah. So this goes on our broccoli crunch. And then we just need to gently mix it all in. Notice I'm mixing to the middle of the bowl so that I can try to get everything incorporated. You can already tell that the dressing is starting to coat the broccoli, which is exactly what we want to happen. It's exactly what we want. Look at all the stuff. Now, the nice thing about this is if you really like onions, you can add more. If you really like pecans, you can add more. If you want a different nut, you can add pistachios and or almonds. Really, the sky's the limit for this. I just really like broccoli crunch, and with the extra bacon, that is one of the secret weapons in getting kids to eat this. The bacon is the secret. It's kind of like ranch dressing with the rest of the veg. You can bacon and ranch, you can make miracles happen. Okay, so that's the broccoli crunch. Now that's just gonna hang out and marinate. We'll come back to that for a taste in just a little bit. Okay, so for now we're returning to our asparagus. You can imagine that you've, grilled some steaks. Now we have some seared asparagus that we want to serve with it. And we have our beautiful parsley and lemon salt. And you just kind of shake it over the asparagus. Because, like I said, it is kind of wet. You can leave this to dry on a plate for a while if you'd like it to be less wet. It'll still retain its color. But that's your nice asparagus right there. So that's the whole dish. And you have plenty of this left over to do other things with. I really like the asparagus dish because it's so quick. Doesn't take long at all to cook, and it's very flavorful. That salt is really delicious. Okay, to make this slaw, we have dinosaur kale. Look out. It's huge. This is huge. It's giant. So I'll teach you how to prep that. We have a green cabbage today. This is an organic green cabbage. You can see it's only half. We're not even going to use all this. We have celery hearts, which is the very center of the celery. And I love this because all these little delicate celeries with the leaves, they really add a lot of texture and freshness to this slaw. We have some roasted red peppers we're going to add to it. And then we have the chili lime almonds. Okay, so that's the raw ingredients. We're also going to make a dressing for this. And this is one of the coolest things. It's called a sumo citrus. It's an orange, but the skin on it is so thick that we're only going to use this skin. It's a delicious orange. This is actually the best orange I've ever eaten in my life. They are majestically sweet. So I encourage you to eat one, get one, and you'll be totally hooked. They have this little knob on the top. That's one of the indicators that you have the right product. So to make this dressing, we're going to be using just the zest of this orange, some fresh garlic, 2 peeled garlic cloves, a little bit of mustard, um, and vinegar and olive oil. That's it. We're going to be using our little Blitz blender cup. So we're going to build everything right into there. So let's do that first. Ready? All right, we're building everything right inside here. So my garlic's already prepped. I'm going to go ahead and drop that in there. And then we need 1 heaping teaspoon of, I like grainy mustard like that. That goes into there. Okay, let me show you what to do with this. So like I said, it's very thick and there's so much flavor in here that we want to be able to utilize that. But just like with the lemon, we want to take this pith off. We don't want any of this orange pith in our dressing at all. So we want to just take it off. Okay. So that goes away. We want to drop our zest only in there. A lot of times it helps to cut this into strips. I find that it's a little bit easier to deal with when you have strips like this. You can just press your knife down onto the flesh and run your knife hopefully right underneath that white to take all that pith off like that. Okay. Now, if like on this piece, there's some left that you think there's too much, well, that's fine. Just again, run your knife under it and take it off. Same with this. And then just to help the blender out again, we're gonna cut that just a little, drop it in there. So yes, all this flavor is going to be coming from just these few little pieces of this orange zest because it's so perfumey and incredible. It really is incredible stuff. I don't know if you can see this, but it's so wet. There's so much citrus oil coming out of this, and you can smell it too. It smells just like a super orange. Okay. So we have our garlic, orange zest, mustard. Now we're gonna add our white wine vinegar. And I like to do somewhere between 2 and 3 parts oil to 1 part vinegar because I like a little more stout vinaigrette, meaning I like it a little more acid tasting, a little more acidic. And now I'm just eyeballing my oil amount. We're going to start with like 2 times. About twice as much oil as vinegar. And we can always add more oil if it's a little too tart. So I'm going to step away and blitz this up. Look how thick that is now. Okay, let's give it a taste. Yep, that is nice. Nice and fresh. Okay. Okay, let's prep our fresh ingredients. We'll start with the kale. So, what do you do with this gigantic leaf? Well, we don't want to eat any of this rib. So, first, we want to pinch at the top and just kind of hold it, pull the rib out. Okay, so now we're left with just the leaf part. If there's any at the bottom that still looks a little bit suspect, you can just take that out like that. And these are so big, I only needed 3. I may not even need all that. So if there's any left, you can cut that out, but that's what that looks like. And one more time, just pull it right out like a big thorn. All right, so now I have that. What I'm going to do is cut this in half so that I only have to cut half as many times now. I'm going to take this whole stack and just roll it because all this kale is going to be raw in our salad, okay? Now I want to cut this thin, thin, thin because I want it to be easy to eat. And depending if you like kale, this is great for you. And if you're kind of unsure about kale and you want to stop about halfway through, that's okay too. You don't have to add it all if you don't want to. I like kale and I'm going to use all of it. Okay, so there's our kale ready to go. Now the next element is the cabbage. And since this is already cut in half for us, we can see exactly where the core is. And I don't want any of that. So I'm going to just cut around it. Okay, and I'm going to take this piece. And same deal, we want to cut it as thinly as possible. Again, if you have teenage children, this is a great job for them. This is a job that has sous chef written all over it. All right, if you get down to here and there's mostly ribs, you can safely discard that. Just don't even need to bother with it. Okay, we're gonna take our shredded cabbage and add that over here. All right, the last thing we need is some of this red onion too. So remember how we just cut the half off last time, we're going to do that same thing on this side. Only instead of dicing it this time, we're going to slice it into thin strips going this way. And why are we doing that? Because everything else is shredded into thin strips. So we're just kind of repeating that pattern. Plus, I think this looks really nice in the slaw when it's like that. So we'll break these up a little bit. Okay, and we can kind of mix this together. Do need a bigger bowl. It's going to be hard to mix. Once this marinates, it's not going to have so much volume. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of our cabbage, some of our onions, and some of our kale, like so. Take a little more cabbage. Right, I'm going to take our orange dressing. One nice thing about this is since it's so thick, it's going to coat really well, which means you can actually use less. So it'll just nicely mix in. You see that color too that comes from that orange zest is just really, really nice. Okay, so we're mixing. So the cruciferous vegetables in here, we have onions and cabbage and kale. So we're getting a triple dose. And again, this is a fresh preparation, so no cooking required. You can serve this right away. If you'd like it to be more like a coleslaw, you can let it marinate for an hour or so and then serve it. But as it stands right now, this is ready. The only thing it's missing, we have our garnishes yet. So we have some of these chili lime almonds. I'm gonna add those in there. Some of our red pepper. And this is just for, color, texture, especially the color. If you like red peppers, you can add a lot more than that. I like just about that amount. Now remember we talked about our celery hearts. This is the crunchy topper. So we have these beautiful little baby celery leaves. And I'm gonna just cut the leaves from the stems like this. No, little baby. We take those celery leaves, use those as a garnish, and then these little pieces of celery. We want to use those too, because they're definitely extra crunchy. We can just sprinkle those around the top too. All right, so there's your fresh kale and what is it called? There's your fresh kale and cabbage slaw with with chili almonds and red pepper and the baby celery. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. This next one is the one that everybody loves. And here's the stuff. It's very simple. We have squashes, Brussels sprouts, pistachios, and then we're making a apricot balsamic dressing, which is super simple, also made in the blender cup. We have dried Turkish apricots, we have garlic, we have balsamic and olive oil, and that's it, with the exception of one piece of lemon zest. So, what we're going to do first is prep our veggies, get those cooking because this is a cooked dish, and then we're going to make the vinaigrette after. All right, so here we go. Brussels sprouts first. All right, you see the stem end and the bulb end or the flower end. So a lot of people will take this and cut it real deep, but that's wasting a lot of Brussels sprout. Unless there's something wrong with this section of the Brussels sprout, you don't need to cut it that deep. Um, in this case, someone already cut the leaves off for me, so I will trim it there this time, but that's all we need to do there. And depending on what size you want, you can cut them in half or into quarters. Okay, but for our purposes today, and given the size of these Brussels sprouts, I'm only cutting these in half. So in this case, I'm only cutting off the part that doesn't look nice, and then I'm going to cut these in half like so. And our finished Brussels sprouts are going to go in this bowl. So you can see like that. This one just needs a lot of help. I don't know what happened to that one. Since we were already cutting it in half, there we go. Done. So that was a good illustration right there. We only need to cut off as much as just that. You don't need to cut it real deep. Again, unless there's something on there that you wouldn't want to eat. These are kind of borderline as far as the size goes, and you can also kind of pick the outside. If there's leaves on there that don't look great, like that one doesn't look great, just take that off. But if these were any bigger, I would also cut them again, just to, again, try to keep our bite sized in mind. And these look really beautiful on the inside. Really nice Brussels sprouts. All right, so once our Brussels are halved, we're going to take them over to the stove. These take longer to cook than squashes, so we're going to get these going first. All right, so let's go over here. See that? Good. Have a little bit of bacon fat. Is Brussels sprouts and bacon are best friends. I don't know if you knew that or not, but they are. So we want to just swirl the pan to kind of get that going. And then I'm laying all the cut sides down. I want to brown these kind of a light golden brown. And then I'm going to flip them over. And don't worry if that looks like a lot of bacon fat, because it's going to stay in the pan. But it is going to help flavor our Brussels sprouts, and that is important. All right. Let me go ahead and salt them now, just a little bit. That'll help start to season them through and also help with the cooking process. So while that's going, we're going to turn our attention back over to here. We're going to prep our squashes for searing. Remember how we were talking about only taking off what you need? That's all you need, unless this is rotten in there. And that's kind of a dark spot, but if that bothers you, look, just take that out. No big deal. Now we don't waste a bunch of squash. Same thing on this end. That's all you need to take off. So there. And if these were really baby squashes, then you can eat the stem. It's not fibrous or woody. So what we want in this case is I'm going to cut this on the diagonal like this to give me these oblong strips of zucchini. And I'm going to do the same for the yellow squash. And I'm going to go in my bowl. And do this end. All right. Now I hear our Brussels sprouts are sizzling away, and that is very good. Let's come over here and check them. Let's see what's going on. Do we have color? Yes, we have color. Great. I'm going to turn these over. What we're doing is just creating flavor. That beautiful brown color is all flavor. And it's okay if some of these extra leaves start to get crispy. They're just going to be delicious also. Not to worry. All right, a few more of these go, and then we're going to start cooking our squashes. We're just going to leave these here for now. Okay, now, what that is, just enough olive oil to coat the bottom. Our pan is heating. Just gonna move that olive oil around. Okay. I have turned this can off. I'm just gonna let the residual heat kind of finish cooking these through. You can always go and check. I don't think nothing's really in danger of burning at this moment, so we're going to just leave it. These thicker pieces, I'm going to make sure they're right in the middle. Like that one, I want to make sure it gets cooked through. This one too, because the middle is the hottest part right now. So the rest of this, just let those hang out. We have our squashes sizzling away. Now we're going to make our apricot balsamic vinaigrette. Everybody loves this one. It's really delicious. Okay. Here's how easy this is. Okay. Under cup. How much garlic do you like? I'm a fan. I put 2. You could just use 1 if you want. I like 2. We're going to use about 6 of these Turkish apricots. And again, just to kind of help the blender out, I'm going to go ahead and cut these into little strips. So that goes in our blender cup with our garlic. Remember I said one strip of lemon zest, maybe two. That wasn't very wide. That's going to go in. Okay. Now we add our balsamic. Okay. And we're going to do 2 times the oil, just like we did last time. 2 to 3 times, depending on your taste. With this one, you don't need to add as much oil because the apricots really kind of chill out the tartness of the balsamic. Okay, so we're gonna roll with that amount. What I need now is just a little pinch of salt. We're gonna blitz this up in just a second. Back over here to our squashes. They are getting nicely colored, which is what we want. Remember that's flavor. There we go. And we'll move these around. If they don't have too much color on them right now, that's okay. Here's what's happening with our Brussels sprouts. They're still very gently cooking in the residual heat of this pan, so we're just gonna let them keep going. All right. I'm going to blitz up this real quick. I'll be right back. All right, our veggies are done. Look at that. Beautiful color. They're just al dente. They still have some texture, but they're just cooked through. All right. We need to take some of our apricot balsamic, just drizzle it over the top. Just a little bit like that. And finally, things. We add our lightly toasted salted pistachios just for some extra color and crunch. Beautiful. So let me show you what we've done. We have made our squashes and Brussels sprouts with apricot balsamic and toasted pistachios. We have made our roasted asparagus or seared asparagus with our parsley lemon salt. And that's a pretty dish on its own. We have made our kale and cabbage slaw with orange dressing. And we have finished our broccoli crunch, which that's my favorite. I know that's the one you're going to love the best. Again, super easy way to eat a lot of broccoli. Lots of people that don't even like broccoli really love the broccoli crunch. So, thank you very much, you guys. I hope you learned something today. That wraps up another Thursday dinner session with Spirited Food. I appreciate you. I hope that you can see with a little preparation how easy it is to make good food that's also good for you. Recipes will be below. Make these things. Give me some feedback. Let me know how you think or what you think of them. Appreciate you being here. Chef Andrew out. I'll see you on the next one.